love to boogie on a Saturday night.
Marc used to say success is like riding on the back of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it may turn round and bite your head off.
He created glam rock, but unfortunately, of course, then everybody jumped on the bandwagon and you know, sort of like people like sort of Gary Glitter pushed it to silly extremes.
People called him a glam rock star, and he was really, but he and Gary Glitter and Elton John and Slade, all part of that so-called glam rock thing. But I think Marc was a little bit above that, actually. He was much cooler than that. I think he was a bit hipper.
There was more to T-Rex, and they did suffer when it all sort of beginning to move again. Their popularity sort of stopped and waned a bit, but I always thought they were just a fantastic band, and Marc was a great writer of a boogie and a riff.
He was starting to lose a little bit of that oomph that he'd had in the past, and I think the fans were starting to move away.
T-Rex started to sort of lose a little bit of impetus, and he started to reassess himself.
He declared glam rock dead in 1974. He was looking for a new musical direction, but he never found a musical direction that was sort of commercial, that people actually wanted to buy, because he got into sort of like soul music.
Change is coming just like the sun. Change is coming, you better run.
If you look back on it, you can see that he is sort of coming to the end of writing all those singles, banging them out. And I think probably he wanted to get back into writing full album, proper album, not proper because that's demeaning what he does, but more album orientated stuff, and trying to build up a more album based following.
Sing Alloy was the last studio album that I played on, and I kind of sensed a different atmosphere about everything. And I think at that time, I don't think June was on the scene anymore.
June went back to England on business, and while the cat was away, the mice would play.
It was the time when Gloria Jones came on the scene that she said, "That's enough, I'm out."
Marc and Gloria Jones were like two mad children skipping through the door, you know, giggling and laughing, completely in love with what the other one was about.
It was never about the money, and it was about love for her. And that's this one thing she always tries to, you know, she lets me know.
All of a sudden, she became the Yoko in the band. And it's changed the perceptions, the friendliness between people. Marc became more remote. He was in love.
Gloria Jones is not to be thought of as lightly. You know, here's the woman who wrote If I Were Your Woman for Gladys Knight and the Pips, you know, who wrote Tainted Love, recorded it first, you know, and did lots of Tamla Motown stuff.
Gloria Jones became involved, and that meant that the sound began to adopt a more soul stroke disco direction, or at least it was going even further into that way.
Some of the later stuff was really, kind of blew me away and blew my friends away, because it's kind of like a punk rock gospel, but rock and soul. It's kind of like merging these things together that no one really has done, and there's so much vibe there and like so much energy, and you know, the energy was probably coming from other places too.
I was working with an American band called Carmen, based in London for a while, and managed to get as producer for our band a guy called Tony Visconti, who was working at the time with David Bowie, Marc Bolan, Paul McCartney, and at that time Marc was restructuring the band. I think Bill Legend, bless him, had decided for whatever reason to retire for a short while or move on, and Tony was saying that you know, could I go do some session work with Marc, and was taken down to Scorpio Studios, and we started recording Zinc, Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow album.
It's gonna be glad when you take the hand of the liquid gun, oh yeah. Peter, really Peter, he's such a messy eater. He's got frogs in his eyes from telling those lies. Sunday's almost Monday, you gotta understand. It's gonna be glad.
It's a jumbled up cornucopia of all different influences and ideas, new and old, melding and clashing and exploding and hopefully turning us on.
As an artist, he was being put other colours onto his palette that maybe he couldn't use in his paintings quite so easily as other people.
You're gonna be grand. You're gonna be grand.
Other things at this point could have been maybe becoming to influence slightly on his creative side.
Marc was sort of always believed in himself. You know, from his earliest sort of days, he knew he was going to be a star. He wanted to be a star. That was his driving force. And of course, obviously, to believe in yourself that much means that you've got, you know, quite a big ego. And unfortunately, if you've got quite a big ego, then cocaine just makes it worse. It just makes it bigger. And then of course you know, at the same time, I think Marc was becoming surrounded by yes men who wouldn't tell him, you know, don't do that, it's rubbish.
It all got a little bit tainted, the whole thing. It felt like it was all changing and coming to an end.
He didn't listen to me. Things were getting very ragged. The band was really disenchanted with him.
I did my last tour in Australia. The guys were going to fly down to Sydney from Brisbane, and I saw a plane coming in from England. I thought I'd just go home.
At the peak of T-Rextasy, the band was still making £75 a week, and they were promised, you know, they would share in the royalties. They were promised things like a motorbike each and things like that. None of this, you know, none of the promises materialized.
People change, and different influences come into their life, and it's not for me to say, because I mean, I meet Gloria and Roland now, and they're lovely. You know, we get on fine. It's fantastic, and that's all in the past. What happens, happens. I was glad I did what I did. It was great, you know, and just all move on.
I didn't like where he was going. I didn't like where his head was. He was doing copious amounts of cocaine and drinking. He got very, very heavy, and he wasn't the Marc Bolan that I fell in love with. You know, he just turned into a monster.